and welcome to the Be Glad movement. My name's Pollyanna and I'm on a mission to bring you as many stories as possible of good coming out of bad and reasons to be glad. And today I'm joined by Ed. Say hello, Ed.
Hey Polly, how you doing?
Really good, thank you, really good. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm going to get out of the way and let you dive straight in and tell your story. Over to you.
Wow, thank you very much, Polly, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Wow, where do I start? Well, firstly, my name's Ed Bowers and I'm the Creative Education 2 Sport, and that's really key for my story. And going back, so I'm 25 and going back at the age of 9, basically education was a big struggle, big struggle. And actually, very ironically, I went to the old school reunion last weekend, and this was a school, great reputation, but it just wasn't the right school for me. So basically, at the age of 10, like moving on that year, I had to leave. And it wasn't because I was bad, it's not so naughty, you know me quite well now. It was just I just wasn't a right fit. So basically I had to go to a different type of school system. I went to like a prep school system, which is totally different. And from then, like my reading age at the time, this is the key, I was only 6.5. Reading age. It was a big struggle. So I was dyslexic. It was more memory, short-term memory loss was the biggest thing. So moving on, and this is where the sport is so important, is for me, sport was the only way as a language where I could really express myself, really showcase skills which I couldn't represent in the classroom. And again, that's key because a lot of people, when they're young, don't get me wrong, I wanted to be a pro tennis player. I was a big Pat Rafter fan. Like, I don't know if you know him, he's an Australian tennis player and I love his net play. And people who know me well, and when I did play tennis, I love getting in that net. But seriously, when I look back, despite I wanted to be a pro tennis player, it was actually sport and rugby where I really just, you know, the team element of rugby, for example, just gave me the way to show leadership skills, just showed me to show different skill sets. It's hard to pinpoint the skill sets, but when people play sport, there are just different skill sets from an academic perspective and sport. Yeah. But moving on, I don't want to go dwell on too much of the story.
I love that. I think that's brilliant. I love what you said earlier about sport being a language for you. One of my brothers has suffered with dyslexia, and I love that you were able to express yourself through sport. And yeah, brilliant. Sorry.
No, because the great thing about what you've just said is I couldn't really communicate that well. But in a sports or speaking to adults, I had a great upbringing. I had my grandparents who taught me the very old-fashioned way of being brought up. We had breakfast, lunch, tea, getting dressed for dinner. You know, it sounds silly, but these little habits really mold your character because you sort of learn how to be polite and all this sort of stuff. But going back through this journey, at the age of 12, it was really significant. Till this day, I would say it's probably my biggest year of my life where parents broke up, which I'm still gutted about, to be really honest. I'm an only child. I actually had a spinal fusion operation, which is extremely rare at the age of 12. So this is where sport was a killer for me because for 2 years I couldn't play any sport. I had this big back brace on. So this is the time where while other people, like all the other kids were playing sport, I was in the classroom doing algebra, doing extra English, and the only thing I could do was walk. And this back brace had to be on literally except a shower. I had to wear this thing. And so that went on, leaving the school, going to different schools. So it was all going on. And probably this is the time in my life where I was so independent. Like even now, parents say, why are you so independent? I said, well, it was probably that moment. In 12 months, parents split up, back operation, leaving school, different system. But it was only afterwards where I was at this prep school for 2 years and they did an amazing job. I'll be honest, I wasn't happy there, but that's probably because of external factors. But thinking now and reflecting, because I've been looking forward to this chat a lot and really trying to look at the past and how it's built me for the future. Yeah. Looking forward, you know, that school did an incredible job. They actually brought my reading age to 10. So 4 years, like in 2 years, they brought my reading age up to 10. So when I went to my second school, which is Shiplake College, everything clicked. So just putting things in perspective for your listeners, I did common entrance, I think is the term, with prep schools. Right. I got in through an interview. So my grades were like E's, D's. When I was at Shiplake, I was in the lowest set form, but they did a thing where they do like with reports, they don't just give you an A grade and like credit you on your academic level. They had effort grades. So you had like an effort grade and academic grade. Well, every year I got the effort grade award. Like I just put in the effort, and just roll this on a bit more. From the time I left Shiplake, so I was 13, and when I was 18, I was getting D's. Right. And the time I left, bearing in mind I wasn't even, you know, people at my first school said I would never go to uni. I ended up with A star, distinction, wow. B's, and I got into Durham. And so this is, I'm going to try and move the journey forward a little bit, but the thing what I'm trying to explain to people, when people say at a very young age, you're not going to go to uni, for me, that was my Everest. I was like, I'm going to do it. I don't know how, I don't know, you know, the pathway, but if I know I put in the effort, things will happen. And sport, that was my bread and butter, like first team for most sports. Tennis, I was captain and for like certain levels. So that wasn't the problem. It was getting the education in. But what it did do, because this is really key, I wanted, as I said to you earlier, I wanted to be a tennis player. But I realised, so I know two people who have been elite athletes from the schools I went. Right. And if you want to be an elite athlete, everything's got to click. Unfortunately, when I was 12, things just broke up. And you need, like, to be an elite athlete, you need your family support, you need external team, you actually need, like, you need some sort of pathway where you can just focus on that narrow. But that narrow, this is the amazing thing looking back, was education. Right. It was, despite it was a struggle, it came together so well. When I went to Durham, I was like, I'm here. Like, I'm not going to lie, I had a lot of fun at Durham. And I would say to any student that it is an experience. It is meeting new people, trying to really, bearing in mind I'm from Surrey, I was going up north, you know, it's like a different world up there and the people are different. So one learning lesson from university was that I was meeting different people. And that's, to me, going on to my business, where these skill sets are coming. Like, you wouldn't guess now that I had dyslexia. You wouldn't guess now that I had learning difficulties. But back then, it was a huge challenge. And it was a challenge for my parents because, gosh, I think my mum's still in bed here, and I don't want to talk too loudly. But, you know, I'm nearly a £200,000 product. Like, they've invested nearly enough that money. Because, put things in perspective, when I went to change those schools, I was at a summer school. And we're talking nearly £20,000. They took me to another school in London to get this dyslexia more sustainable so I can learn better. So, like, breaking up the words using colour, different learning skills. So, you know, there's times I look back and flipping heck, like, I am so grateful now, looking really back, of the parents investing in me. But the way I gave that back is, and I've got a lovely picture, because the one thing I admire, and I hear different stories, and I'm talking about people now, when their families break up, my parents always show that respect. They still do to this day. So I've got a lovely photo and the biggest smile. When I graduated, there's my mum on one side, my dad on the other. And I'm like, you know what? I have given that back. And, you know, so talking about just before I checked going, should I go into university or not? For me, it was so important, not just to go there. I wanted to study sport and look at it as a bigger picture, because I'll be honest, when I told my dad GCSEs I was doing sport, going, what can you do with a PE? You know, what is that? And, you know, physical education is a lot bigger now than it ever has been, mainly because it's all professional, but that means there's more opportunity. But back when I was 16, you didn't see all that. You don't see the bigger picture. You're just in school doing your thing. But reflecting now, I'm so glad I went, Dad, trust me, this will work out. And same with my degree, it will work out. Understanding, you know, because my degree was sport, exercise and physical activity. That's so broad. It's psychology, sport policy, trying to get people more physically active. You know, look at obesity now. It's a huge talking topic, I should say. So when people say, oh, from a career perspective, you can only be a PE teacher, and there's nothing wrong with PE. I would love to be a PE teacher one day in the future. But I'm learning now, going, no. There's a bigger picture here. And this is, I'm going to move forward to this journey now. When I did leave Durham, before then, so during my time, those 3 years, first year I had to get money for my house. And this is key, because I think students got to learn how to get jobs to pay that. I had to pay for my first deposit of my house. And I ended up doing 4 jobs. I was a tennis coach. I was working in a restaurant, did a little gardening business. And then I also taught tennis to my restaurant bosses during lunch break. So it was, and I didn't have a car. I was walking everywhere, taking the train. And then the second year I was going, right, I need to learn this sports industry. Like, what is the sports industry? Like, that's another thing a lot of people don't know about. But even when I was at Durham, I was going, I want to work in the sports industry, but where do I go? Who do I speak to? And very lucky enough, I knew probably about 5 people. Like, and actually one of them was an ex-tennis coach who taught me. And I had the opportunity to do a month at Soccer X. And then through networking, through friends and family, I actually managed to work at Sky Sports. So, and this was during, gosh, we're going back in time now, the Lions tour out in Australia. I was doing the final week, which we won. So I did some of the editing. I learned how, like, to be fair, it was lovely because I was watching sport for 4 hours, but in a studio environment, not watching it just on the TV. So I saw what goes on behind the scenes. And it was amazing to see that environment. And to be fair, working at Sky at that time, it was like I was like a kid in a candy shop, because this is the sports industry. This is from a digital media perspective, or TV perspective.
Right.
And then after that, I thought, right, I really want to work there. And moving on from my final year at Durham, I managed to see the boxing department. This is the random stuff, and this is where it's really important to really push yourself. For my dissertation, Polly, I wanted to really challenge myself, and I thought, what is a sport I really admire, like the athlete, but never ever compete myself, plus wasn't in my upbringing. And it was the 2012 Olympics, so this is the time I was working in London, and I watched Nicola Adams. I'm going, yeah, boxing, like, you know, this is a fan, like she's like my icon in the boxing world, her way of how she came across during the 2012. And I thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to do my dissertation on. So basically, when I was at Sky, I also asked the department, and this is key, guys, if you're listening in and you're in an environment and you've got to capitalise where you are, don't be shy to ask. So I went, look, where's the boxing department? Can I manage to just talk about my dissertation project? Because I was really interested. Why do boxers want to go in the ring? What motivates them to, at that time, really get hit? If you put things in, you know, so like what inspires them to get in that ring? And anyway, I was very lucky to meet Johnny Nelson's daughter, because she was doing an internship, and she said, "I'll meet my dad." I went, "Who's he?" "Johnny Nelson." "I don't know him." Anyway, I was eating my lunch, and this big black guy, really great presence, he shook my hand. I lost my hand in this handshake, and he goes, "I heard you want to do some research, boxing research." I went, "Yes, sir." And he's, you know, right up there. And before we know, we were talking about it, going, "Look, here's my details, give me a ring, and I'll set you up in my gym." And I'm going to go forward here because I was very, very, and this is again reflecting, I managed to do a research project at the Brendan Ingle gym. Now, if you don't know boxing, this Brendan Ingle gym is really iconic. It's one of the top gyms in the UK. Prince Nassim, I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
He trained him, like literally his flat was opposite this boxing gym, and it's a converted church. Wow. And I managed to interview some world champion boxers, some amateur. But what was magical, and this is where sports like a language again, I walked in, and if you go to most sports, you've got like the elite players one end, and then like the grassroots, you know, athletes on a different day. They don't integrate. Well, I walked in this gym, had my Durham stuff on, like sports kit. I wanted to blend in, but I wanted to also like blend out as well. I didn't want to put too much pressure on these boxers. Exactly. But there was this, I still have this vision, and I still remember this image, sorry, I should say, not vision, where walked into the gym. I met Brendan Ingle, and he's very old now, but he is so influential to these boxers. He's probably delivered 6 world champion boxers, but I can proudly say he's probably helped 3,000 boxers either get off the street, get employment, get education. Like, that's the bigger picture, but nobody really talks about that. And to me, that is more influential than the world champion boxers he's produced in a very authentic way. And there was this image, I still remember this, I kid you not, a 9-year-old kid, they have these lines on the floor. It's actually painted, so you can't copy these lines, where it's all about the footwork. And there was this 9-year-old doing it, and then on the other side was Kell Brook. Now, Kell Brook's probably the poster boy at the moment for that gym. He's trying to get a fight with Amir Khan at this moment. And he just walked in, and he was on the same line as this 9-year-old, and they were both doing the same drill. And I'm like, sport. You've got somebody who's at the top of the game, and then you've got a 9-year-old, both doing their craft, just different age basically. But it was the respect they both had with each other. And I thought, wow, this is what boxing is. Because you only see boxing with the razzmatazz, the build up of a fight, but this is the core of boxing. So I managed to work with these boxers, and actually, hold on a minute. Where is it? I managed to get it published. So this is the boxer's life: control the feet, control the fight, exploring the pre-fight motivation, preparation strategies for elite boxers. So, so again, for
that's your dissertation.
That's my dissertation.
How cool is that?
Exactly. And the reason I'm saying this to people is, if you put in work and challenge yourself, I didn't know this was going to get published. I'll be honest, I didn't get a great grade for this. I didn't get, but from the boxer's perspective, and I actually talk about Nicola Adams quickly. I met Owen Bolcher, who is her coach. I met him face to face, and he's read it. Actually, I gave him the title. I wanted him to title the book Owen Bolcher because he's a great friend. And he said, Ed, this is not in any boxing world. There's not much boxing research, but from an academic perspective, there are a few flaws. But the reason I'm saying this to students is, this is how you really elevate yourself. At the time, I just kept pushing, just focus. But reflecting, this is the sort of career advice I'm giving to your listeners, is that if you're in this academic environment doing your degree, you've got to really push the extra mile in where you want to go. And relating to my journey now, I went back to the gym, gave them all a copy of this, and Dominic Ingle, that's Brenda's son, had 5 minutes to me. And this is a key. This is probably my breakthrough moment where, my dad should have gave me this pep talk, but it was Dominic. Because I said to Dominic, I really want to work at Sky Sports. I was trying to catch up with Johnny, but that was the wrong strategy. You should never ask that sort of leg up. You've got to earn your stripes. And he sort of said to me, Ed, look, I've worked with so many boxers, and if you think you're just going to give somebody something to give you an opportunity, it doesn't work like that. He said some more firmer words. He wasn't rude. He said what he had to say. And he never met me. And actually, Owen was next to me. And my confidence went. But Owen drove me home, and he looked at me, Owen, he said, look, Sonny, you're right. And I went, yeah, I'm just a bit deflated. He said, look, prove him wrong. And ever since that pep talk, which really should have been my dad, but it was Dominic, and I can't wait to meet Dominic, because he was basically saying, look, if you want to succeed in life, you've got to do it your way, and you can't rely on. I do believe that sort of concept, scratch my back, scratch yours. Working with people, but for a job, you've got to show people you can add value first before you get employed. I think that's the message I'm trying to say. So, moving on, because I was in Sheffield Station going, what the heck am I going to do now? Because this is out the window now. This is this is like my little golden ticket to how to get things going. But I thought, no, let's just start from scratch. And like most students, you're thinking, what is next? And after university, so this is 2014, going in 2015, I had 6 months where I went in a recruitment game, because they were showing interest in me. I was getting all these great cold messages on LinkedIn going, we'd love to interview you, thinking that you're worth value, but actually you weren't, because they were doing it for commission their end. And it's little things like that where from a career perspective, from an interview perspective, it was, I don't think it's ethical. I'm going to be really honest. So, but lucky enough, going back to my time at SoccerX, this is where networking's key, guys. When I was back then, I literally sent one LinkedIn message going, look, I'm really looking to get some work experience, work for free. Literally, I just want to get a better understanding of the sports industry. And this guy, Ollie, knew me well at SoccerX. And he rang me, and I was actually in a pub with 3 other guys in London. I'll never forget it, because I had a few beers, drowned my sorrows a little bit. He rang up randomly. Ollie who? Oh, ran out the pub. Yeah, trying to brave face on. He said, Ollie said to me this question, what can you do for me? I said, look, Ollie, I'll get you leads to create more business opportunities. Anyways, great. That is what I'm looking for. Come on Friday. It was Wednesday. Came on Friday. I went suited and booted, well outdressed. But hey, again, this is another key tip. If you want an opportunity, go the smartest you can be. Polish those shoes. And even people said, hey, do you overdress? I said, no. I'm not overdressed. I'm here for a reason. That's what I said. And I started on the Monday. I got my salary, well, not salary, it was an internship. I was only getting paid 25 quid. I think, a week. It was really, the pay was irrelevant. It was the experience. But this was the time, probably, and this is where I'm going to move forward with this story. Basically, when I was working at this company, Benchmark International, they do amazing work in the sports industry. It gave me behind the scenes what goes on from a business perspective of sport. So when I was speaking to my peers at university about this company, they never heard of them. When I spoke to the university, they never heard of them. And I'm going, I had this headache, big headache for a good 2 weeks before my internship failed. I'm going, how the heck doesn't this, the universities doesn't know these companies? And on the other hand, this is a key thing, Benchmark International didn't know what I studied. And this is key, because right at the middle of it is back before I chat. How will the student know? Like, how can a student graduate without access to who are the influencers, who are the companies relating to their studies? And basically, after my internship, I didn't have my driving license then. Okay, I had to walk to the station. It was like a 2-mile walk. And I thought to myself, how can I build this bridge between the university sports industry and the students? Because without a doubt, the students' knowledge is the key to moving any industry forward, because we aren't in the luxury now of dedicating 3 years on any research. We don't have the time for that, but these students do. It's probably any time in your lifetime, unless you go back to university as a mature student, you've got that opportunity to really build this bank of knowledge. So I literally spoke to my dad. Now, my dad's been in the police, he's retired now, but he was a policeman for 30 years. So it's a totally different, should we say, industry, public servant, it's totally different. So when I pitched this to my dad, we had a bit of a misunderstanding. And basically the next day I got my Honda Jazz. It's still in the driveway, actually, because I did have my license then, because I did my driving test, I think 2 weeks after my internship, and I passed. And I just knew that this wasn't the environment where I could set up Education to Sport. So my mum was living up in Lincolnshire. Thankfully, my mum's partner's Peter, who's probably one of my first mentors with this idea. He said, Ed, come up, let's talk it all through. And we've literally got big piece of paper, dining room table. I thought I was ruling the world with this map of ideas. And I said, this is the issue. I want to create a solution, not solve a problem. I want to create the solution. So basically, I set it up Education to Sport. It's the only domain I thought of which indicates who I am as a person, because you've got the education side and the sport, but also it links well. Basically, I'm trying to achieve knowledge into the sports industry from students. So, but the problem was there was a missing piece of going, how can I provide students real, authentic career advice? It's all well going to different people and going, well, you've got to have a good CV, you've got a good cover letter. That's applicable for every industry, but sport's different. As I said to you in person, if you want to go into sports nutrition, it's going to be totally different if you want to be a sports marketer. It's not going to be the same. So basically, I said to my mum, I need some inspiration. She said, well, find it online. And I kid you not, I don't even know how I found it, but I went on iTunes on my computer and I just went, oh, podcast, boom, and search sport business. And I saw these podcasts. And before you know it, I listened to Lewis Howes and John Lee Dumas. It was the first ever podcast episode I listened to. Well, 8 hours later, I was taking action on these podcasts, probably going on the newsletters, and I was getting all these free ebooks. And I thought, this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I sort of, after that 8 hour period non-stop, I went, I'm going to be a podcaster. I just said to myself, I'm going to be a podcaster next year. And don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how to set up a podcast. I don't even know how to do interviews. I just said I was going to be a podcaster. And before you know it, I had to pitch to people this idea of the Sport Industry Access podcast to people. One, they didn't know what a podcast was. I had to explain what a podcast was. I sound crazy saying that because I did this in 2016. And basically in May 2016, I launched my first 3 interviews. And since then, I've got a podcast show. It's called the Sport Industry Access Podcast, just mentioned, but I interview people around the world. It's gone across nearly now 87 countries around the world. I've spoken to people I've got an interview next week from Australia. I've done people in Canada, Japan, all specific to the sports industry. So we're talking psychologists, sports academics, PE teachers, but different countries. I've done PE teachers from America, Australia. It's a totally different system. Also athletes, politicians, sport coaches. And basically now I'm going, look, students, I've got a resource for you. I've got something which is creating a solution where you've got your degree, you can channel it relating to your interests, to your studies, and most importantly, where you want to go. But you're listening to the influencers. And yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. Like, I've got a few ideas for next year with an academy I'm building, because I think now I'm ready to be a sports career coach, because I took on 2 students as well. I'm just trying to give people the whole journey of my journey, that I couldn't provide any career advice when I started this in 2016. Like, people going, well, Ed, how can you give me career advice with no validation? Well, now I've spoken to these people. I know what the industry are looking for, depending where you want to go. And so anyway, this year I took on 2 students for free from Southampton, Solent. They messaged me. I went, look, I'm going to help you. I'm going to train you for what the industry are looking for, or what attitude, what sort of skill sets. And what happened 2 months before they graduated, they were both in the sports industry, relating to where they wanted to go. Yes, they're going to have the struggles. Yes, they're going to get rejections, but they know where they want to go. And literally that's where I'm now. Like, we met at the UPRNO conference. That's my time, and this is the time I always spend in November, December, because the sports industry is seriously quiet. This is my sort of business development stage where I'm at. But hopefully I've answered your question with this story, so it gives people now a great overview how education can be applied to sport.
I love it. I love it. I love your tenacity and your can-do attitude, and I love the fact that when we first got on the call, you were like, I just need to make a cup of tea. You're my kind of guy, Ed. I love it. But no, it's fantastic. So essentially, you've solved a problem of the linking up the actual sports industry and the education system together.
University.
It actually amazes me that they're not, that there was that gap, that it wasn't more interlinked.
Well, I think, speaking to academics, because actually my first one was with Dr. Martin Roderick, a fantastic lecturer who's taught me, you've got to realise that the university has its own, it's a lot on research base. It's like being at school, like, because people can relate to going to school if they didn't go to university. You're in that environment, that's the key that I've learned reflecting. So if I'm going to be really honest in the show, when a lot of students leave, they sort of start pointing fingers going, this person didn't help me, or this university didn't help me. And that's not the answer here. The answer here is going where you want to go. And I remember one piece of advice on my podcast where this psychologist said, are you ready to take responsibility of your career? And I was listening to this live and I'm like, he's absolutely right. It's all well finger pointing at different people. That's not going to resolve, because he said this well. If you point one finger at somebody, you're going to get 3 fingers pointed back at you. And I remember that saying as well. And he's absolutely right. So in my eyes, I just want to be like, I say this to people. It's probably the best way I describe myself is like, I'm like the Indiana Jones of the sports industry. Okay. You don't need too many of them. You just need one. And I'm the one. I'm happy to really explore this industry and bring back the information, and then, sort of relate it to either coaching, to workshops, because actually at the end of the day, I want, this next generation, because it's, this industry is changing, like not just sport, I mean, generally. And I'm going to just give you a fun example, because I think this proves my point of how careers is moving on. When I was 25 this year, it was for some reason a significant year. Forget about 21. To me, 25's been the big nailing point. And on Google, it says like happy birthday or here are the celebrities. So I clicked it going, let's see who I'm sharing my birthday with. Well, Bruce Willis, we share the same birthday. But ironically enough, when I looked at this list, I didn't have a clue. There were about 3 movie stars, 2 musicians, and 8 YouTubers. Okay, this is the key. 8 YouTubers. And I'm going, who are these? And you look them up and they're massive followers. They've got, they are influencers in their field. And that proves a point. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have had a YouTuber being a celebrity more than a movie star or a musician. And I think that's the point I'm saying is, even if you're in a 9-to-5 job, they're going to sort of disappear. Like, unless you have a team which absolutely sees you adding value. And this is my training now, which I say to students, don't focus on the paycheck yet. You want to know where you want to go and know where you want to really add value to this industry. And this is what Dr. Dave Aldred said to me. He's Johnny Wilkinson's kicking coach. He said, if you get too specific, i.e. like this is where university research is great, but it can be a negative flaw as well. If you just focus on one small niche too much, you're in a corner already. You've got to have that sort of flexibility in your career. And that's the same thing with all the people I've interviewed. They have one niche, but then they're broad in other areas. But the key bit is, the key thing I've learned through the people I've interviewed is they've all got a sports career purpose. And this is a phrase I've created from the show, because when I interviewed students, because I've got students as well, it's not just all the influencers. I've actually got the next generation of influencers who I've interviewed, because they've just got that wow factor about them. They've all got a sort of purpose. And that's something, again, that's missing. I think, don't get me wrong, the biggest word I get on my podcast show is passion. But to me, that's fluff talk. But if you go and use word passion and then find the levels, let's say commitment, being a good communicator, these are areas of where your passion shows. Like, I haven't said, you know my passion throughout my whole journey. I haven't said that word, but this is the area with careers. It gets a bit that sort of fluffy language. We all love to hear it, but that doesn't create a solution helping people go where they want to go in life. And I just want to be the guy who helps graduates go where they want to go in the sports industry. And that's my next step to my journey.
I love that. And you know what? I think it's probably a good thing you didn't just get that leg up into Sky Sports, because now you're adding so much value, and you're just beaming joy because you're loving it. So I think it's really worked out for the best. Those pep talks, and you talk about earning your stripes. And now it wouldn't surprise me if one day the Sky Sports will be wanting to interview you about what you've done. So
but that's a great point. I look back now and I go, actually, that Dominic Ingle chat, it was so needed. And don't worry, I did this chat with my clients, not as firm, because I'm still young myself, but they got it. And I think a lot of the time, I've spoken to a few students actually recently, and when they're in that academic environment doing their degree, they've got a lot of pressure on themselves. And I get that. That's the beautiful thing, is I've been in your shoes in here, but all I'm saying to you, just commit an hour of your time, a week, where you're thinking like a pen and paper and going where you want to go next. And it's amazing. I read a lot of self-development books, and it's the simple sort of exercises are the most powerful. And with Sky, don't get me wrong, I sort of have an eye on, one day I'd love to interview Gary Neville. I love to be in that environment, but on the other hand, they're doing great things, Sky Sports. I think they are really dominating very well. And another quote thinking about from my podcast chat, one lady called Vicky Saunders, she said, don't always focus on that 1% of sport, which is like the big money, which is Sky Sports. Focus on that 99%. Focus on the people who don't get the support, don't get the access to resources. And she's absolutely right. That's what I'm doing. I'm dealing with students who, when they leave, there's going to be stresses everywhere, because we're not talking about what's next with career. They've got where they're going to live. It's amazing now. I'm at the age where you're seeing people have kids and family and marriage, and I'm like, blooming heck, I'm just building this business. But this is a really important point to listeners, or this is life, guys. Like, I'm not going to sound resolving everything, but I'm just here to help your career journey. But there's other things going on, and that's the difference in an educational system. It's funny. I love debates over dinner, and they go, how does this 14-year-old be like world champion? And I go, well, let's be honest, they don't have that responsibility. They're not thinking about bills from last week. They're not thinking about, I've got to drive my mum to the gym because the other cars, my dad's playing golf somewhere else. They don't have to think like that. And that's the difference. But you can still learn off influencers now more than any era, like the use of social media. You could follow influencers who are giving you little golden nuggets of knowledge where you can just apply yourself. And to me, I'm going to be honest, you've got to have role models in the sports industry. If you want to work in the sports industry, you've got to learn off the people who are doing it well. I'm not saying you be like that 9-year-old kid like I'd had with my Pat Rafter poster. I'm not saying that at all, but you've got to have little triggers which you look at your influencer or mentor. Well, like for me, it's Chris Ducker. Always watch his stories, see what he's doing. John Amichi's another one. Like, as much as I've had the privilege of interviewing him, he was my first proper mentor, and looking back now, I still keep in touch. But so people are listening out. If there's athletes you really, really admire, don't be shy to send them an email, because how that started off, and again, I'm just putting things in perspective. I told you some stories I haven't shared live. When I was working at Benchmark, John was one of the clients. And one of my jobs was, because I was sitting at my desk, right there was the door buzzer to let somebody in the front door.
Yeah.
And the buzzer went, and he went, "It's John." And I was going to be really cheeky, go like "John the postman?" Like, John who? But I did. I just pressed the buzzer, went downstairs, opened him in. And there's like stairs coming up. And I was top of the stairs, so I felt really tall. But this man just get taller. Now he's 6'7". He's a pro basketball player. And I went, "Wow, do you want a cup of tea, sir?" And literally, I made him his cup of tea, and it's probably the highest cup of tea I had to give somebody. I had to literally give it to him like this. Now, this is key. This story got me access to interview him, because I said, "I kid you not, John." I sent him an email after I left Benchmark, and I said, "Look, that cup of tea felt like I was shooting a 2-pointer, which is like a basketball term." And that's how Kick rolled everything, because it was an authentic email. I'm just trying to give people any advice I can give for them to reach out to people. Use a story which connects with them. He can't probably remember that cup of tea, but for me, I had to go on my tiptoes near enough, because honestly, when you stand, his waist is on my shoulder. I'm quite small, but and ever since then, been out for lunch, had business chats, because he's doing great work he's a fantastic public speaker, keynote speaker. He's doing great work with sport in basketball in really poor areas. So this is a guy I admired, because he's pushing the boundaries and willing to put himself out there. And again, from a sports industry point of view, people now are taking interest. But when I met him, he was doing all the hard groundwork, and now he's getting the recognition. And I'm just saying to listeners, that's really how it's done. Success, this word success is quite an interesting one in my mind, going, how do you achieve success? But you've got to put in that groundwork. And a lot of the time, I look back, 3 years now, it's only now that things are starting to really happen. And I'm just trying to say that's it's like your work, you're doing it. It takes time, but you just got to keep putting in that groundwork, and things will happen.
I think a key element, obviously, the passion that's coming out of you. I'm using your word. Passion, I can see it. It's there. You are putting in the groundwork. You found your own way. You've carved out your own path. You didn't, although you're gaining inspiration from people, you're not trying to copy any one person, which I really like. And you've actually created your very own niche, really. What you're doing is brand spanking new in the sports industry, as far as I'm aware. So that's super cool, really.
It is cool. And thank you very much for the feedback, because this is another thing I've learned, and this is why I love our Facebook group with the Upreneur. You want to hear other people's stories as well. So I'm just as inspired of what you're doing, and this is really important. You've got to actually really, really care what other people else are doing. So it's lovely to get some feedback, because normally I just have these four walls giving me feedback, because sometimes we're in our zone. But what I'm trying to say is connecting with other people, and the people we met on our mastermind. I know that's going to go a long way from a professional relationship perspective, and this is what I call adding real value and actually working with real people. And it was funny going back to this weekend at this 150th anniversary of the school. I was the only podcaster in this room. There's bankers, accountants, and I'm like, so this is the key message here. It's good to be really different. It really is. And it's just there's one bit he said to me before this chat, what would you give to students, is don't be frightened to follow other influencers, but try and do it a way where you stand out. But most importantly, reflecting now, and this is what the work I'm going to be trying to do for next year, is find that clarity in where you want to go. find that clarity. And if you think like this idea I had in my Honda Jazz when I was driving up, it was just an idea. It really was just an idea, but it's putting in that sort of groundwork and really believing in yourself. I have, like, looking back when I just left those 6 months after I left Durham, my confidence was super low. I said to myself, this will never happen again. And sometimes you've got to draw a line across the sand and believe in that. And looking back now, it's I'm excited for 2019, and I just hope people can relate to the story. And if people want to connect, I'm here.
That's awesome, Matt. And I'll share all the links to your podcast and everything under the video. So thank you so much. I mean, I know I already said it, but you're so passionate, and I'm sure there's lots of people that are coming out of uni that are maybe a bit lost, not really sure what they want to do with their lives now. Did they even choose the right degree? It happens a lot. But the fact that you are, like you say, it's so easy to say that, but just find something that you're interested in. And I think maybe one of the most important messages that I want to put in there is get started. Like, you don't have to necessarily know the end point, but just to get going is a massive thing. And you might take a few bends, but at the end of the day, it's better than just sitting still and doing nothing. Get started. If it doesn't work, that's good. Who was that light bulb guy that he was like, oh, I didn't fail however many times?
You're testing my science now. I've totally forgotten as well. I'm not a scientist, but I know what you're saying. Actually, it's same with Dyson. Like, I can relate to Hoovers because I use the Hoover every weekend. It's one of my chores. It took him, Mr. Dyson, over 1,000 attempts to build that fantastic Hoover, and now look, he's building. No, they're not Hoovers, but he's building same sort of machine. Dyson. He's now on like farm fields around here, cropping our crops. So the point is, you've got to really just put in the reps in. But the key is, and this is something I've learned from a podcast show, because I haven't changed my style, and this is really important. When you found something that's working, you just got to duplicate it. And that was a key point from the Epreneur Summit. Forget about duplicating way of earning money. That, of course, that's key. But when you know something works, or you know how to connect with people that works, you just duplicate it. And because sometimes we do too much try and error, and I'm a hands up for that. But you mentioned a really great point there earlier. When I was in that dark zone, and I call it like the black hole, whenever I write my book, I've got an outline coming in my head this sort of month after the Epreneur Summit. But when students can't figure out where they want to go after university, you are in this black hole where the image I had, and I still remember it, I was in my pajamas watching boring Saturday TV. I was looking at my Facebook page and I saw people doing really cool stuff. I'm like, I should be doing that. And this is another key thing, is don't compare yourself online. Be inspired what other people are doing. And I actually did my newsletter last week for the Sports Career Academy, and I said they had the Forbes top under 30 influencers in the sports industry. And I sort of shared that article, shared these influencers, and we're talking from 22-year-olds to just on 30. So these are the sort of same age brackets for most of these students. And a lot of people could go, I couldn't do that because he's an ex-basketball player, or I couldn't do that. But instead of being like, I'm going to use this word, being jealous or envied, flip it on its head and go, look, he can do it, so can I. Okay, I may not be a pro athlete because that's what he was, and he may have the capital to do his startup, but the startup bit, anybody can do now. The resources are really there. And that was my main learning lesson from learning off these influencers. And ironically enough, next week's special guest is one of the people who was on that list. And I cannot wait to share that to the listeners, because he's 24. I thought he was 32. I thought literally this guy was in his mid-30s. And no, Ed, I started this at uni in this, in his room, and now it's going to be a sports digital media platform, and getting 6 million viewers on their website. 6 million a month, and it's just incredible. So another tip I would say, don't focus on your age, just focus on where you can add value now. Because that's another thing I said about this interview, despite he's 24 and I'm 25, it's still irrelevant. And that's a big thing I've learned. Sometimes, I don't know if you, when I was reading books going, Nelson Mandela got his degree at 23. That's cool. I got mine at 21. sweet, I'm 2 years ahead of Nelson Mandela. You know, you're sort of reading things like that. Try and ignore the age thing. It's very difficult. I get that for students, but you know, everybody has their aha moment, success moment. You know, if you think of the founder of McDonald's, the real founder, he was mid 55. So, and that's how everything elevated to where it is now. So, always learn of people, always learn of like-minded people is more important, and just connect. This is a key bit. Connect with people who just have that same passion, desire, but also add value. When you know, and you'll know them, because trust me, you know what it's like, Polly, when you're networking. You know the ones who are just trying to use you to get to your network, but the ones who really care go further. And sorry, I'm giving more tips, but they're in my head, and I just wanted to share them while
I love it. I love it. And I tell you what, I'm going to sort of end on and round up your tips. It's about service, because through the whole of this interview, you've been like, let me just explain to your listeners. Obviously, you're thinking about your podcast, and you're trying to give detail, and you're trying to help people. And I love that about you, Ed. You're all about trying to help other people, and that you get a lot. I think as you know, I'm a listening volunteer for the Samaritans, and I take hard calls, but I get a lot out of it as well, because I feel like I've helped someone in their time of need. And volunteering and charity work and stuff like that doesn't get enough recognition. For people think it's about them helping someone else, but actually the benefits that you get on a personal level are so profound. And I know that, I'm going to say passion again, the passion that's coming out of you, that your pure desire to help other people is, I've been smiling the whole way through. I'm just loving the energy that's coming off of you. So I want to, take my hat off to you, definitely, because I love your energy. You're only 25, and it's brilliant. You've got so much time to share your energy with the world and inspire other people. So I really do love what you're doing, and I wish you every success in the world with it. I really, really do. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Right, I'm going to finish the video because we could talk for ages. Right.
So we're done. We all done?
Yeah. But I'm going to hang on in there. Hang on.
I will do. I wasn't sure.
If you like this video, do please hit the like and subscribe button, and you'll get notifications when the new videos are uploaded. Please do get in touch if you've got a story that you'd like to share. It doesn't matter if it's similar to somebody else's story, because I really do believe your story in your voice has the ability to help someone in their time of need. So please do get in touch. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. If you search @Be Glad Movement, you should be able to find us. And I look forward to seeing you in another episode. Many thanks.